If you're thinking about buying a historic home, there are 5 core things that you need to be looking at before you ever make a decision to make an offer. We are a mother-daughter team that are historic home experts. My mom is a licensed contractor who has been doing this for over 25 years and has restored over 30 historic homes. I am a licensed realtor who specializes in historic home buying. So join us today as we break down the 5 most important things that you need to be looking at whenever you are considering purchasing a historic home. So the very first thing that you need to consider is the location and the neighborhood. It is so easy as a buyer to get emotional about the home itself once you find what seems to be the perfect home, even if it's not in the perfect neighborhood. It is so incredibly easy for us to look past things that may be deal breakers in a normal situation, but because the home seems like it's perfect and it's amazing and it's everything that we thought we wanted, we can convince ourselves that the location or the neighborhood isn't as important as we originally thought. However, in many cases, this can be a big mistake. You need to think about your daily life first, not just the charm of the home. What is your commute to work? If you have children, what school district are you in? Think about access to shopping, to parks, to restaurants, the things that you visit on a regular basis. And then there's the neighborhood itself. Is the neighborhood transitional? A lot of historic neighborhoods are still in a transitional phase, meaning there are some homes in the neighborhood that have already been updated and they are well taken care of and they are really great homes. And then there's a lot of other homes mixed in between those that maybe are more run down or are vacant or haven't been well taken care of. And that doesn't mean that the neighborhood is bad. It's just something to consider. You want to think about if the neighborhood is safe, if you will feel safe and comfortable walking around your neighborhood. Does the community value preservation? Is it a historic district, which we'll talk about more in a little bit more in depth? And then consider the long-term future in that home and in that neighborhood. Will you still enjoy living in that neighborhood and in that home in 5 or 10 years? What about resale value? Whenever you consider resale value, the neighborhood and the location is almost more important than anything else when it comes to what that home is actually worth. So ultimately, think beyond the excitement and the fun of being able to find a home that you love and imagine your everyday routine.
Second biggest thing that I look for when I'm walking through a house for the first time would be probably infrastructure as well as the solidity of the house. And by that, I mean, when you walk in, do you see crooked floors, for example? Is there central air that has been updated, or is it old, window units? Has the electricity ever been updated? The plumbing? All of these things are your most expensive items. So those to me are the biggest things that I'm looking for right away. I can add it up in my head. According to the size of the home, I know what it's going to cost. But most people have no idea. Just you need to know if these big things are missing and they need to be done, they're going to be expensive. You have to decide before you move further with the house. So if you get to the point that you really love this house and you know it needs at least one of these big expensive things, usually they need many more, that's when I would call in a very reputable person to look at each of these issues. If the roof's a big issue, ask around about a good roofer. If it's a historic home, of course, Office of Historic Preservation wants a specific type of roof. So that's something you're going to have to think about too. If it's central air conditioning, get your HVAC guy to come in or ask around. Plumber, electrician, just to evaluate for you. These things won't cost you to evaluate before you make the offer. That way you know which direction you're going or if it's worthwhile to keep going.
Most of those individuals will come in and do a free assessment for you and just give you a roundabout idea. They're not going to give you exact numbers in all cases, but they can give you an idea of what you're looking at from a cost perspective so that you can decide, does this even make sense for me to continue pursuing this house, or is it one that I need to cross off my list due to just too many big things? You also mentioned, Mom, right whenever you walk in, the solidity of the home and slanting floors and things like that. A lot of times you can feel it as you're walking across a room and you'll notice, okay, I feel like I'm going down. And if you look at a certain angle, you can tell that the floor is actually sloping. That's a good indication that there are some foundation issues, which I think there's foundation issues in most older homes.
Most historic homes need at least a touch up on their foundation, if not a full foundation, because that is something that people tend to ignore as long as they can. I don't always do this, but you can bring a golf ball and put it on the floor and see what happens. And that's kind of a fun trick to try. There are so many things, but typically, one other thing to mention is there are always going to be unknowns. So, sewer line is always an issue. Always an issue. Typically, we have to run a new water line from the city to connect into the house simply because they're old and they're tiny. We use bigger ones nowadays to get enough water pressure. So for our modern homes, they didn't have the bathrooms and kitchens that we have now. So you need a lot more than they used to need. So lots of hidden things to be aware of that could be surprises.
Yeah. So number 3 that we always look for in every single historic home is the character inside the home. These are the things that you simply cannot recreate, at least not without spending a whole lot of money. So what we're talking about whenever we say character is we mean the built-ins, we mean the original wood floors, the pocket doors. These are things that so many houses had, 100, 200 years ago that don't typically exist in homes today. The doors are typically solid doors. You'll have transoms above your doors, which I will put a little video in here of so you know what I'm talking about when I say transoms. Original windows that have been well taken care of or are capable of being restored. So most people who are looking for a historic home are wanting a home that doesn't look like your standard issue brand new build where they all look exactly the same. They're looking for a house that has that unique character that really only historic homes can bring. And while you are looking at the character of the home, you want to pay attention to how that character has been taken care of. In some cases, you'll find that wooden built-ins have been sanded down and painted, and in some cases, you're able to restore that wood or bring it back to the original condition or detail. And in other cases, it has been badly damaged and that's not possible. So you're not just looking for character, but you're also looking at how have those items been taken care of, and am I able to use those items and continue to have those items in my home in the way that I want to. Okay, so number 4 on our list that we always recommend buyers look at before they make a decision on making an offer is whether you're in a historic district or the home is a historic landmark. And so if you could, Mom, just talk through a little bit of what they need to know, what's most important to understand as they're thinking through what changes they would potentially want to make in this home and how that's relevant to the buying decision.
Okay, so your realtor or the listing realtor should be able to let you know if the home is in a historic district for sure. Historic landmark is a little different. I bought one house that I did not know until I was signing papers at closing, and my closing title company officer told me that he just wanted to make sure I knew it was a historic landmark. So I didn't know it till closing. You can always call the Office of Historic Preservation to be sure. They can look on their list and tell you that. So the biggest thing with it being either of those two, if it falls into either of those two categories, is that you are going to have to spend extra time planning the exterior changes. If you have any at all, I just removed a wheelchair ramp from a front porch, and then I'm having to rebuild the front porch because it was totally gone and had been replaced with something much more modern. So of course, that took me just about 2 months to get through that process. For anything on the exterior that you need to improve or restore to what it should be and what it was before, you still have to go talk to them and you have to get it approved through the process.
Yeah. And another thing to consider here is many of the original structures, or even if they're not original all the time, historic districts will require that you maintain those and you're not able to tear them down even if they're completely falling apart. And so in some cases, you'll have to consider that extra expense of rebuilding that or getting it back to a usable structure if it is something that is needing that additional help and support. And we'll show you an example of a structure in the back of my mom's house that was one of those examples.
Yeah, if there is a building, even if it looks like it's falling over in the back, don't assume you can take it down. And sometimes the neighborhood association, if there is one, will even help sway the Office of Preservation to whatever you want to do, because sometimes they'll say, you know what, we think it's an eyesore, or we think it's a danger, please let her tear that down. And sometimes they will then change their minds, but typically they want you to rebuild that structure like it was before. Very, very rarely do they let you take down any structure that is original. Now, if it's something new and it was built in 1950 or 60, I'm sure they'll let you take that down.
And a lot of times with list price, you're able to negotiate. And as my mom said, we a lot of times will make a list of, here are all of the things that we see that need to be addressed or have to be addressed, even just to bring it up to code or to make it a safe house to live in, or obvious things like structures that are falling down and need to be addressed and things like that. And that will help us negotiate the price. So again, the 5 core things that you need to consider and be looking at before you ever make an offer on a historic home are: number 1, location. Is it in a neighborhood that you love? Is it in a location that you are happy living in for the next 5, 10 years or beyond? Number 2, how solid is the home and what is the infrastructure like? What are the major expenses you need to consider that are going to have to go into the restoration of this home? Number 3, what is the character looking like inside the home? Has it been well taken care of? Are you able to restore the things that are most important to you? Does it have a lot of character? Because some homes will be more simple, whereas other homes will have more intricate details. Number 4, is it in a historic district or is it a historic landmark? And what type of restrictions do you need to consider when it comes to that, as far as the things that you want to do with the exterior of the home? And then number 5, your overall budget. Now that you have an idea of the larger expenses that are going to be necessary for this home, does it fit with your overall budget, and is it even a home that you can consider? So as you're thinking through all of these different factors, we have actually created a guide for you that breaks all of these down in a PDF format. So if you would like to grab that guide, you can find a link to it in our description. It is our buyer's guide. And this will just be a great checklist for you to print out and carry with you whenever you are touring homes. So that is it for this week. If you are new around here, make sure to hit subscribe and follow us so that you can see all of our new videos. We put out a new video every single week with historic home buying and renovation tips. And we'll see you right back here next week.